Hi, it's Daphne. Welcome back to my channel. Today is Valentine's Day and I felt like doing a spontaneous romantic related video for you. So I just saw that Kaylani posted a tag video in collaboration with a bunch of other booktubers, and it is specific to romance. They're calling it the Romance Reading Journey book tag. So I wanted to participate. I'm gonna link her video down in the description if you want to check it out, and she has all the other collaborators in her description as well. So let's get started. All right, so the first question is about how old were you when you started reading romance, and do you remember the first romance you read? Why can't I say first? Why is that weird? Am I saying that weird? I don't really remember exactly like the first maybe like young adult romance I read, but I remember I was really into like Twilight, The Hunger Games. I think I might have read some Maze Runner, and I think I read like The Uglies, and I read The Host by Stephanie Meyer, who's the same author as Twilight, and I was just like so invested in all of the romantic plot lines. Like that was what kept my attention the most. So when I transitioned into reading adult books, I believe the first one I read was a historical romance that my mom had in the house, which was, what was it called? Let me check. The Flame and the Flower by Kathleen E. Woodowis. So that's like the most distinct one I remember starting with. And then there was like a paranormal werewolf shifter romance that I remember going to like Borders. Like Borders doesn't exist anymore. And begging my mom to let me get it. And that also was like a more adult book for me when I was a teenager. And yeah, those are like the two books that really stand out as like adult romances that I was getting into. But like when I started reading romance, I don't know, I had to be in middle school, like when I was reading the YA stuff, when I was really into like those plot lines, but I wouldn't say they were like exclusively romance. I probably read that first historical romance when I was a freshman in high school, so like 15, and changed my life. And now I'm obsessed. So the second question is, do you deliberately seek out romance, or did you stumble upon it, and how? I definitely specifically seek it out. It's my favorite genre. It brings me so much entertainment and just so much escapism and enjoyment. And like for me, reading is mainly for fun. You know, like I'll pick up books here for like learning and perspective here and there, but like I'm mostly reading for pure entertainment and like the endorphins and the fun time. So romance gives me that the most. And I just love it. So yeah, I'm always like deliberately seeking it out. After I read those two books early on, I was like seeking them out like crazy. Like I went on the 50 Shades of Grey bandwagon when I was in high school too. I think my mom read the first one for her book club, and I think we shared I had access to like her Kindle library, so I read it and I was obsessed. And then I just also vividly remember like being at my parents' house. I was probably like 16, like on the stairs, like thinking to myself, oh man, I have to have this awkward conversation with my mom and be like, Mom, can we just like order or like buy the rest of the series, because I really want to read it. Because I know she didn't like it and she knew what the content was. And I was like, can we just get it? So yeah, I was always like deliberately seeking out romances. The third question is, did you start with traditionally published or indie, and has it switched? Definitely, I started out with traditionally published. I didn't know anything about indie books until I really got into BookTube like a couple years ago. I think I started really watching BookTube once I got into my 20s, like after I graduated college. And yeah, I had no idea about indies, but with all the BookTube girlies and their recommendations and a lot of stuff being on KU and being subscribed to KU, I've had a lot more opportunity to read indie. And indie just takes things a little further, I find, and you can be a little more creative. So yeah, I read way more indie now than I ever have before. And sometimes with traditionally published, like you just get kind of burned, like your expectations are like sometimes not really met. I think I probably lean more towards indie, but I'm not like specifically looking for indie. You know what I mean? I just don't really trust like going to a traditional bookstore all the time for romance. Even like Book of the Month, I subscribe to them, and I'm hesitant to pick up their romances these days because sometimes they'll be really great and other times I'll be like, that was freaking terrible. That was terrible. So that's my response. It's not super clear, but that's what I got for you. Next question is, what was a romance trope you were afraid to try but ended up loving? This is so easy for me to answer. So I was scared to get into like the monster romance thing and now I love it. It is just so fun. It's just pure enjoyment, entertainment. I remember being a little tipsy, home alone by myself. Chase was like at the gym or something, or at a work event. It was like Friday night, and I was like hearing whisperings about this new monster romance by Katie Robert. It's called The Dragon's Bride, and I was like, you know what, F it. Like, it's not on KU, I'm just gonna buy it. And the next day I was like, what did I do? But I read it and I was obsessed. I'm still obsessed. Like I said, I've reread my favorite scenes over and over again. And yeah, the monster stuff is like the phase I'm in right now. Is that a trope? I don't know if it's a trope. We're gonna consider it a trope because that's the answer I have. Is there a romance book you read early on in your journey that you would rate differently today? I wasn't really rating things until after college, but like with the Kathleen Woodiwiss book, those are like bodice ripper kind of historicals, and they tend to be like a little non-consensual, to put it nicely, even though I shouldn't have to put it nicely. But like back then, like I was reading a lot of those bodice rippers because they were in my, you know, hometown library or whatever. And now looking back, I'm like, like I know there are better romances that are like all consensual. So I would probably rate those lower for good reason. It's just not the best look. Has your taste in romance evolved over the years? Yeah, I'd say probably. Yeah, definitely. I think I'm more aware of the content that I'm consuming. I've tried so many more types of romances than I had in the past, like especially because now I'm pulling away from just the traditionally published books. Obviously, even in traditional publishing, like things have changed. There are more diverse books like on shelves, being talked about on BookTube and stuff. So definitely read way more diversely than when I was younger because those books just weren't put out for me. Like they just weren't visible. It just never, I don't know, there weren't any like Black love stories in my libraries. I didn't see them at Barnes & Noble and things like that. So that is something that I'm so happy about. I'm like way more conscious about trying new things like dark romances, the monster romances, the sci-fi alien romances, the second chance romances, older like couples, you know, that too, like not always reading like early 20s teenager stuff. Like obviously as I mature, I would like the characters to kind of be relatable, and they don't always have to be like around my age, but I'm more comfortable reading stories about people a little further on in their life path than I am right now as I get closer to it, you know? So yeah, I think just as a human being, as I evolve, my reading taste has evolved as well. What is the most powerful romance that you have read that has left a lasting impact? This is a tough question. I don't know if I really have an answer for this. I've read some really impactful books that I think about a lot. Like in recent memory, something that comes to mind is Kennedy Ryan's Hoop series. I think she talks about some really important topics in them about like domestic abuse and things like that. Long Shot, I'll like recommend to people all the time, like with content warnings, but it's just so good and so amazing and like something that like I don't think I'll ever forget about. But yeah, I'm still dipping my toes into some of those darker romances. There are some that I'm really excited to get to. Like I'm excited to get to Still Beating, The Words, The Kingmaker, A Love Letter to Whiskey, things like that that I think will have really serious topics involved potentially and might be impacted by. But like I said, most of the time I'm just reading romances for fun and nothing really jumps out as like super like life-changing impactful. So sorry. What was the romance book that told you this, oh sorry. what? Some of these questions are really specific. What was the romance book that told you this is what I'm looking for in my personal life and or partner? Okay, I've been with my partner since I was 19 years old. Currently, I am 28. Yeah, so I've been with him my entire adult life, and I'm very fortunate to have like matured and grown in a compatible direction with him. And we've worked on a lot of stuff. We have really good communication, which I'm really grateful for. So I don't know if like I read romances and I'm like, oh, that's what I want in my real life. Because like my real life is pretty freaking great. I mean, we have our, you know, imperfections as a couple, but overall I'm like really proud of the relationship that we've built together. And sometimes just reading these like kind of toxic relationships are fun and thrilling, but I would never want that in real life. Like I don't want a super alpha male who's very like territorial over me and easily like quick to anger and jealousy and things like that. Like I want my partner to care and be like protective of me, but I don't need him to like be like, get away from my woman. You know, like he's very secure in our relationship and I appreciate that. Like if some dude is trying to flirt with me at the bar, like he trusts that I'm not gonna like encourage that or like let something go too far. You know, he's very secure. I'm very secure when it comes to him and women coming onto him. So I find that like realistically better and healthier for us than like these alpha things. For books, I eat that alpha shit up. I love it. I love it so much. I think at the core of the matter is that I just love knowing a man or a romantic interest is so passionately like in love with the lead. You know what I mean? Like just showing how much you want that person, I find very attractive. So that's why the alpha thing works for me, but in real life, no. Don't need that. I just like a secure male. But that doesn't lead to drama and intrigue, so I don't think it makes for like the best storytelling. Next question is, which romance books would you recommend to a romance newbie? And then which books would you recommend to a seasoned romance reader? So for romance newbies, I'd maybe recommend like Mariana Zapata. She's very slow burn, so it's not gonna be like intimacy, like back to back to back. There's a lot of buildup and like plot involved, so I think that would be good for a newbie. I think a level up from that would be something like The Kiss Quotient, like another traditionally published kind of book. Again, good plot, great steam for a beginner, like if you're really trying to get into that. I think historical romances are good for beginners too, because there's a lot of like, I don't know, like that's where I got started. I got started with historicals, so I think it's a good place to start if you're a newbie as well. Yeah, just pretty much like anything traditionally published is pretty safe. I think Emily Henry is a good place to start. For a seasoned romance reader, I'd recommend Feral Sins. This is a wolf shifter romance that is super hot, super fun. If you want something like thrilling and wild and kind of like nonsensical, but you just want like an entertaining, smutty time, I'd recommend Does It Hurt? And then also I'd recommend, obviously for like someone that's transitioning into like being more seasoned, is the reverse harem / why choose romances. So I really like the Tempting Monster series. That one's really, really fun. And just one more for good measure, I'd recommend like anything by Kennedy Ryan. Kennedy Ryan is like an in-between, I'd say. Obviously for a season, I'm gonna recommend like monster, alien stuff. Like you're seasoned, you can handle it. Just anything dark, really. I don't know. Oh, Haunting Adeline, which is a duet. I haven't read the second one in the duet, but very dark, very fun. Lots of plot too. So those are just some quick ones that I've read like fairly recently, and they were really fun. Oh my God. The last question is, in your eyes, what are 3 perfect romances? Perfect romances. Oh my God. I have no idea. Block Shot. which is the second book in the Kennedy Ryan book series, is so fun, like so fun. I think I gave that 5 stars. But honestly, I rarely give romances 5 stars just because it's my favorite genre and I'm very particular. I am so niche in what I like. Another romance I gave 5 stars a while ago was The Raven Prince by Elizabeth Hoyt. This is a historical. I really, really liked this. It was like so much pining. Both of the characters were like pining after each other, but they were like keeping it secret, and they were like working together. She was like his secretary or something, and she thought he was ugly, but she was like really attracted to him, and like there's like hidden identity stuff going on, and it was really good. Looks like I also rated this book, The Mark of the Vampire Queen, at 5 stars. This was like the first really dark, smutty, BDSM, paranormal kind of book that I read. It's just next level. This is definitely for a seasoned reader. There's just a lot of like if you thought 50 Shades of Grey, oh my god, this is the Vampire Queen series. So yeah, this series is definitely for a seasoned person. But it was really good. It's the first 2 books are the same couple, so it's like kind of like a duet, but the series is super, super long. I think I read maybe like 10 books in the series, and then I kind of got burnt out and moved on to other things. But yeah, I also gave this 5 stars. I don't know if they were perfect, but I gave them 5 stars. So, all right, so that's it for this book tag. I hope you enjoyed. Again, I'm gonna leave Kaylani's video linked down in the description. If you had a fun time hanging out with me, please feel free to leave a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. And subscribe down below if you haven't already. And I'll catch you in another video. Bye.